Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Business Daily. I'm Ijun, and so let's get started with a look at today's highlights. Korea's industrial output slipped in June from the previous month, while business sentiment among local manufacturers remained fragile. From Foxconn's plan to build a massive manufacturing plant in the U.S. state of Wisconsin to the weakening U.S. dollar and a possible leadership change in the U.S. Fed next February, we take a look at what global business stories made headlines this week. Latest government data is showing a mixed picture for the Korean economy, which had been showing signs of picking up a bit of steam. They aren't too discouraging, but the numbers show that industrial output is steadily falling and business sentiment isn't all that healthy either. Our Kim Ji-yeon starts us off.
Output across all of Korea's industries edged down in June from the previous month, the third month in a row it has lost ground. Statistics Korea said Friday that production in the mining and manufacturing industries was down 0.2% on month due to an inventory adjustment in semiconductors and slowed output in petroleum refinery. Output in the services sector was better. It increased 0.5% on month in June, while consumption spiked by more than 1% as retail sales, especially of cosmetics and clothing, jumped. And business sentiment among local industries is mixed. A Bank of Korea survey of more than 3,300 companies showed that overall sentiment in July remained flat from a month earlier at 78. A reading below 100 means that there are more pessimists rather than optimists. And the auto industry's confidence plunged by 10 points from the previous month to 65 due to prolonged labor strikes and sluggish auto exports. Sentiment among exporters in general edged down 1 point from the previous month to 84. However, it isn't all doom and gloom. Sentiment has improved sharply in the chemicals sector, adding more than 7 points on month to 93, as falling oil prices started to stabilize. The electronics sector feels positive too. Its sentiment rose by 3 points on month to 99 on the back of booming semiconductor sales. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily.
After record profits in the second quarter, Samsung Electronics has now surpassed Intel to become the world's largest semiconductor manufacturer. Samsung's semiconductor division reported revenues of $15.8 billion and an operating profit of $7.2 billion in the April to June period, topping Intel's figures in both categories. Samsung also had a higher operating margin of 45.7% versus Intel's 25.7%. Intel had held the top spot for 24 years, but improvements in chip quality and rising unit prices have allowed Samsung to vault past its Silicon Valley rival. Samsung is looking to pad its lead, with the firm expected to sign another deal with Apple to supply components for its new iPhones in 2018. President Moon Jae-in's first meeting with the country's business leaders lasted much longer than expected on Thursday evening. It was the first of a two-day beer meeting between the president and the business heads. Here's our Moon Gon-young with more.
A group of men in shirt sleeves enjoying a glass of cold beer after work would well describe this scene, except these aren't just men. They are the South Korean president and leaders of the country's largest multinational corporations. And this is a patio in the nation's presidential Blue House.
정부로서는 경제 살리기보다 더 중요한 과제가 있기 때문에 너무나 당연한 그런 노력이라고 생각합니다. 정해진 각본도 없고 또 정해진 주제도 없고 시간도 구애받지 마시고 그리고 또 굳이 자료나 수첩 같은 거 없어도 되고 그렇게 편하고 좀 허심탄회하게 대화를 나눴으면 합니다.
The routine president business leaders meeting took place in the most non-routine way possible, with President Moon Jae-in pouring beer on tap for 7 heads of largest firms and 1 mid-sized food producer on special invite by the top office. But don't let the casual setting fool you. The topics discussed were hardcore and concerns raised very real, and corporate leaders weren't shy to seek answers in their first tete-a-tete with the new president.
좀 아마 그 미국의 최강 수출 때문에 조금 걱정하시죠?
He was referring to the U.S.'s new anti-dumping measures in Korean steel.
Honestly speaking, sir, we've given up on shipping to the US for a while. We're planning to focus on longer-term measures instead to counter the problem.
The vice chairman of Hyundai Motors said the automaker subcontractors need more support as they face growing difficulties on falling sales over China's economic retaliatory measures over the THAAD deployment.
Also requested by the business executives were deregulation measures in sectors related to the fourth industrial revolution and alternative energy development. They also didn't come empty-handed. The invitees came with new strategies to support the Moon Jae-in administration's key economic policy goals, including job creation initiatives, plans to hire irregular contract workers as full-time regular employees, and measures to foster mutually beneficial cooperation with smaller firms. Riding on the momentum, President Moon Jae-in will meet with the second half of the nation's 15 largest businesses Friday evening. Whether that session will also bring about another bundle of gift packages for the Moon administration remains to be seen. Moon Gan-young, Business Daily.
Yesterday, we took a look at the Moon administration's economic policies that focus on people-centered growth. And today, we shift our focus a little bit as our Park Ji-won tells us more about the government's welfare, environmental, and cultural policies.
32 out of the 100 policy goals are about Korea's welfare, environmental, educational, and cultural policies, which are grouped under the title of government taking responsibility for people's livelihoods. One of the Moon administration's clearest goals is building the foundation of a so-called inclusive welfare state. Through a diverse range of benefits and financial aid, the government aims to decrease the poverty rate from 12.8% in 2015 to around 11% by the end of 2022. The government plans to increase the state monthly pension from the current $180 a month to about $270 by the end of President Moon's term. The government will also fully fund childcare services from next year and aims to increase the attendance rate of public kindergartens from 25% this year to 40% by 2022. The government also aims to gradually make the country's high school education free of charge from 2020 and complete the process by 2022. Currently, only elementary and middle school education is free in Korea. Strong environmental policies are also key. The government aims to decrease fine dust levels by 30% by 2022. To that end, it plans to close 10 coal power plants, which are over 30 years old, over the next 5 years. The government will also continue to temporarily shut down coal power plants every spring to lower fine dust levels. The government will support renewable energies and counsel further construction of nuclear power plants over the long term. However, due to some opposition, those plans still need further discussion at the National Assembly. Efforts to eliminate social discrimination, protect the rights of creators of cultural products, and guarantee low earners the right to enjoy culture will also be strengthened. Park Ji-won, Business Daily.
And moving on to our coverage of the markets, we're now joined by markets contributor Lee Ji-hye from NPR on the phone to tell us more about today's stock market action and wrap-up of this week's trade. Hello, Ji-hye.
Hello, Jian.
Well, the markets ended on a bit down note on the last trading session of the week. Can you tell us more?
Sure. After hitting a string of record highs in recent weeks, the Kospi index slumped quite a bit today on profit-taking. The benchmark Kospi fell 1.73% to close at 2,400.99, while the tech-heavy Kosdaq finished 2.03% lower at 652.95. Shares traded sharply lower, led by losses in large caps, such as market bellwether Samsung Electronics. Trading was bearish in semiconductors and tech shares in general, weighed by overnight losses in their Wall Street peers. Samsung Electronics plunged 4.1%. despite the tech giant reporting record quarterly earnings on Thursday. Chipmaker SK Hynix also dropped 5.56%. Hyundai Motor was among the few market heavyweights to stay in the positive territory, rising 2.05%. The main board was weighed by heavy foreign selling, with offshore investors unloading a net 561.1 billion won worth of shares.
How did other markets across Asia perform today then?
Well, Asian indexes were pressured on the last trading day of the week after the dollar firmed overnight and with investors looking ahead to more corporate earnings due during the session. Japan's Nikkei 225 slid 0.6%, while Australia's S&P fell 0.1%, which was mostly driven by a broad-based losses across its sub-indexes. Greater China markets also trended lower. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index fell 0.6%, while the Shanghai Composite gained 0.11%. Overall, the greenback was mostly flat in Asia trade after firming overnight on the back of better-than-expected U.S. durable goods orders for the month of June.
Now, going back to the Kospi, although there were some heavy profit-taking today, analysts are still optimistic about further gains moving forward.
Sure. Local brokerages are saying despite investors cashing in on Korean equities after recent highs, overall market sentiments remain upbeat. One analyst said that a combination of positive factors, including a rosy outlook on second quarter earnings by Korean firms, as well as recovering exports, will continue to attract strong foreign buying down the road. The analysts also cited the economic windfall from the government's roughly $10 billion supplementary budget and said the Kospi still remains undervalued compared to the other global indexes. Others, however, said further gains in Korean equities would be data dependent, especially those coming from the U.S. They underscored the importance of U.S. manufacturing and payroll data, saying that improvements there could set the tone of the Federal Reserve's future monetary policy, which would in turn have an impact on Korean equities as well. This has been Lee Ji-hye for Business Daily.
Kakao Bank, Korea's second internet-only lender, launched on Thursday to a flurry of new customers. With more than 300,000 new accounts being opened in the first 24 hours of business, the bank also saw 652,000 downloads of its mobile app. Bank deposits total $66.3 million, while $44.6 million worth of fresh loans were taken out. Kakao Bank's launch day figures are higher than K-Bank's, which saw 240,000 accounts created in its first day of operation. Now, not everything went smoothly on day one, however. Many users were unable to create new accounts, and massive slowdowns were being observed due to heavy server traffic. While K-Bank users faced a lengthier account creation process, Kakao Bank's integration with messaging app Kakao Talk was a big contributor to its launch day success. With Korea's household debt standing at nearly $1.25 trillion, banks are seeing bigger margins than ever before. With the large profits expected to result in hefty bonuses for bank employees, financial authorities have decided to apply the brakes on such practices. Here's our Elliot Kim with more.
Korea's four largest banks, Shinhan Financial Group, KB Financial Group, Uri Bank, and Hana Financial Group posted a combined net income of over $5 billion in the first half of this year. Shinhan topped the list with $1.69 billion, and KB was a close runner-up at $1.67 billion. Uri and Hana both posted record-high earnings at above $900 million. The record profits come at a time when net interest spreads, the difference between the average lending rate and the average interest rate on deposits, continue to widen. While average deposit rates have been lingering in the 1% range, interest rates charged on household loans have increased to an average of 3.47% as of May. Interest income currently accounts for 80% of local banks' operating profits, with banks generating revenue not only from interest spreads, but also by brokering floating interest rate swaps. The bank profits may likely be distributed in the form of bonuses for executives and other employees, but financial authorities are applying the brakes on this practice, which encourages short-term decisions aimed at securing performance pay. Since the 2008 global financial crisis, financial authorities around the world have warned of the risks in incentivizing short-term performance, which can cause instability if those gains are followed up with losses. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
Korea's rapidly aging population could weigh significantly on the country's future economic growth. This is according to Bank of Korea Governor Lee Joo-yeol speaking at a forum in Jeju Island on Friday. The central bank recently estimated the country's growth rate to sit between 2.8 and 2.9% from 2016 to 2020. The OECD, however, expects growth to fall drastically to 2.2% in 2030 and 1.4% in 2050. Lee said falling labor productivity, inefficient allocation of resources, and slow capital accumulation were major factors contributing to the slowdown. He called for measures to improve the quality of labor, promote active economic participation by both young and old people, and reverse the country's low birth rate. In the early 1990s, Japan saw its housing prices plummet, with senior citizens taking up a growing percentage of the population. Korea's population is aging rapidly as well, but in terms of real estate prices, the Bank of Korea predicts it will take a different path from its neighboring country. Our Lee Joo-young has more.
Soaring home prices. This is one big reason why it's increasingly difficult to buy a home in Korea these days. Coupled with the high unemployment rate and the proportion of Koreans who own a home in the country continues to drop. But while home purchases are difficult, experts say that the nation's rapidly aging population is not necessarily a big contributing factor that will lead to a drop in housing demand in the future.
Seniors are trying to keep their homes by renting it out or continuing to work. This is to pay for living expenses.
Also, with an increasing number of citizens in the old age bracket choosing to live in one or two people households, the demand for housing is likely to continue rising, which reduces the possibility of a downturn in home prices. This trend is vastly different from the pattern seen in Japan. What's more, the central bank says apartment transactions have recently taken an upturn, and new home constructions are being limited as they are required to reconstruct and redevelop existing properties instead. Experts also point out it's necessary to implement measures like housing pensions and make good use of vacant homes in order to prepare for a changing real estate market marked by an increasingly graying population. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
Time now for a look through some important global business stories from the week with our Eunice Kim joining us in the studio today. Hello, Eunice.
Hi, June.
All right, so over in the U.S., after much back and forth and some pressure from President Trump, Foxconn has agreed to invest some serious money into the United States.
That's right, $10 billion with more to come. Foxconn, of course, is best known for making iPhone parts, but works with many other brands, including Tesla and BMW, with more than $100 billion in revenue last year. Now, U.S. officials are calling this latest deal transformational, but others are skeptical whether the commitment will actually see a follow-through. Take a look.
A hard-fought win for the U.S. state of Wisconsin this week. Taiwanese electronic supplier Foxconn inked an MOU in Milwaukee Thursday local time, promising to build a $10 billion LCD panel plant in House Speaker Paul Ryan's district. U.S. officials say this four-year plan could lead to as many as 13,000 jobs. Governor Scott Walker called it, quote, the single largest economic development project in his state's history.
We were part of that moment. We were part of the thing that was so transformational. It changed and put Wisconsin on the map on a global basis like nothing we've ever seen before.
Why do it here? TV was invented in America. Yet, American does not have a single LCD fab to produce a complete AK system. We are going to change that.
Foxconn CEO Terry Goh said he'd do more to help revive U.S. manufacturing. He presented a vision to build an integrated production system of next-generation tech in the U.S., consisting of 5G communication networks, ultra-sharp 8K TV, autonomous cars, and medical equipment, to name a few. Not one to miss a great PR moment, President Donald Trump reminded the world who laid on the initial pressure.
To make such an incredible investment, Chairman Go put his faith and confidence in the future of the American economy. In other words, if I didn't get elected, he definitely would not be spending $10 billion.
But already the deal has its detractors. Not only does it come with $3 billion worth of pledged subsidies and other incentives that will come out of the state's pocket, Foxconn also has a less than reliable track record in the U.S. A few years ago, commitments for a smaller-scale factory in Pennsylvania was never realized. The Foxconn pledge is the latest global firm to promise future investment and/or job creation under the Trump administration, a list that includes SoftBank, Amazon, Merck, Pfizer, and Intel, among many others. This, as a stick in Trump's America First threat, looks to be aborted. Also on Thursday, the Republican Party announced it would stop pursuing the controversial border adjustment tax after heavy resistance from the U.S. retail sector, which gets much of their goods from overseas. The idea, crafted by House Speaker Paul Ryan, was meant to offset projected revenue losses from planned corporate tax cuts, with the goal of generating $1 trillion in revenue.
Well, at least it looks like Trump's promise to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. is beginning to gain some traction. Now, meanwhile, on the currency front, the U.S. dollar hasn't been doing so well lately.
That's right. And if this trend continues, it could be a good thing for foreign investors. The U.S. dollar slid to a fresh 14-month low once again this week on the back of a perceived dovish FOMC on the prospects of one more rate hike within this year. While a stalled fiscal agenda in Washington certainly has not helped. The dollar index, which pits the U.S. currency against a basket of 6 major currencies, has generally been on a downward momentum, shedding 9 points year to date. It's also weakened against the Korean won by more than 7% since the start of the year, closing today at 11.22 to the greenback. This dollar weakness comes as the IMF on Monday, you'll remember, had maintained its 3.5% growth projection for the world economy, but below this headline was the observation that the drivers of growth look to be shifting away from the U.S. and the U.K. amid Brexit negotiations and more to China, Japan, the Eurozone, as well as Canada.
And it seems the brainstorming for the next U.S. Federal Reserve Chair has already begun.
That's right. Chair Yellen's term expires in February, and Vice Chair Stanley Fischer's is due to end in June. So President Trump has a decision to make on whether to change or keep the leadership of the U.S. Central Bank in the coming months. In a recent interview with the Wall Street Journal, President Trump confirmed that he is considering Yellen for another term, adding he likes her and she's doing a good job. But he also said he is considering a few other candidates. That includes longtime Goldman Sachs investment banker Gary Cohn, who left the bank to join the Trump team as an economic advisor, and incidentally is also leading the search for Yellen's successor.
All right, we'll keep our eyes on that. Thank you so much for that wrap up today.
You bet.
And that wraps it up for today and this week. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back next week with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.